our brains default to, it must be my fault. Without context, your brain defaults to blame you because our brains would rather have a narrative that's wrong to organize the world around than deal with not knowing. Dealing with not knowing is probably the most fundamental skill we teach people because we're never going to know it all. We can't. So to move forward in life in any way is to be able to tolerate that discomfort, that anxiety that comes with being out on the edge and not knowing if there is a net beneath you.
Welcome to Atypical Kids Mindful Parents Podcast, the Neurodiversity-affirming parenting podcast that helps parents feel less alone. I'm Kate Lynch, a mindfulness coach and parent of an amazing atypical kid. I interview parents and experts who share my mission to create a kinder, more inclusive future. You can look forward to grounding practices, relatable parenting stories, and groundbreaking strategies. If you long to embody mindfulness and compassion in your parenting life, follow us here for connection, strategies, and support. Let's go on this journey together.
Welcome, Dr. Matt. Matthew Zakreski is a clinical psychologist, a professional speaker who's proud to serve the gifted community as a consultant, a professor, an author, and a researcher. He has spoken over 1,000 times all over the world supporting neurodivergent kids. He's the founder of the Neurodiversity Collective, co-host of the podcast Nerding Out on Neurodiversity, which I have been catching up on and am really happy is out there, and author of the Neurodiversity Playbook, How Neurodivergent People Can Crack the Code of Living in a Neurotypical World, which I really want to hear about. So Dr. Matt, thank you so much for being on Atypical Kids Mindful Parents Podcast. I'm really excited to talk with you about how you're helping parents who are feeling like nothing works. I was just talking to a parent and, she was struggling with her 6, almost 7-year-old who started first grade and is neurodivergent in a neurotypical setting and is struggling. Everything I suggested, she's like, yeah, we tried that. Nothing works. It doesn't work. It didn't work. It didn't work.
Yeah, I mean, those stories are kind of how I spend my 9 to 5:30 Monday through Friday. I mean, that's a great place to start for the work you and I do. We have to hold space for parents in the sense of you didn't think parenting would be easy, but you definitely didn't think it would be quite this hard. And for the thousands of miles of text that exist to parent children, very little of that exists to parent neurodivergent children. So people give advice that works for their neurotypical kids, or your parents say like, well, this worked for you. Why isn't it working for your child? The implicit understanding there being like, how are you screwing this up, mom or dad? Right. And to me, you've got to find a way to help them grieve the thing they thought they were going to have and accept the thing that they do have. Not that it's worse, but that it is fundamentally different. And, that's why all the work we do in this neurodivergent space is a question of equity, right? I mean, everybody needs to get what they need. And the more we try and cram neurodivergent kids through neurotypical holes, the more we get stressed out kids, burnt out parents, and angry schools. And I don't like any of those outcomes.
Right. Me neither. And what about some of the things that I have found work with my neurodivergent kid or work, is all so relative because, it is how, not only how our kid responds, but even how we, like our nervous system is regulated in the moment, how we deliver whatever that, strategy is, and then how consistent we can be with it, how much we believe in it. So like things that might have worked I still like want to put that in air quotes because it's so relative, but it's all really about expectations, isn't it? Like trying something with our kid once and having that expectation that they're going to respond. But what about those strategies that may work for a lot of even neurodivergent kids, but feel like they're not working, and parents are super frustrated and overwhelmed.
Oh, yeah. I would guess that you have a similar experience here, that nobody starts with us. Like, I'm rarely ever someone's first attempt at therapy, right? Like, usually they're like, well, I've seen 3 psychologists, 4 social workers, a school counselor, Reiki healers. I climbed a mountain to speak with a shaman once. Like, I'm going to do whatever I can to get the things I need. And it's been really hard to get the things I need. Another thing we're unpacking here in the work we do is previous trauma experiences in therapy. Not that any of our colleagues are bad at their jobs, right? But this is a very particular skill set, and I think it's really important to frame a lot of the work we do as in community, right? I had a supervisor once who kept criticizing me. She's like, you think too much like a social worker. You're always trying to connect people to things. I'm like, yeah, because nobody can do this themselves. I mean, people are lucky to get 1 hour a week with me. If I can hook you up to a school or a community group or a play group or an online platform that gives you tips and strategies and community, why wouldn't I do that, right? Those are things that are therapeutic without being therapy.
Yeah. And parents of neurodivergent kids especially are so isolated.
Oh my gosh, right?
Yeah, they feel like they're the only one who's dealing with this. As an example, this parent was like, yeah, I even have friends who have neurodivergent kids, but they're not dealing with this particular issue. It can be frustrating and isolating, and yeah, having that feeling of like, I must be doing something wrong
Yeah.
because I don't know anyone who's dealing with this, who's having this issue.
Well, and the thing that's wild to me, I mean, and this is one of the things that our brains do, is in the absence of other information, our brains default to, it must be my fault. Without context, your brain defaults to blame you, because our brains would rather have a narrative that's wrong to organize the world around than deal with not knowing. Dealing with not knowing is probably the most fundamental skill we teach people, because we're never going to know it all. We can't. So to move forward in life in any way is to be able to tolerate that discomfort, that anxiety that comes with being out on the edge and not knowing if there is a net beneath you. Because, Kate, and you know this as well as I do, sometimes there's not.
Yeah, those are skills and strategies that I did not have, and raising my son Ocean has given me so much more comfort with discomfort and with uncertainty. It's like a study in mindfulness.
In so many ways, that's what it's all about. Like, the tough stuff isn't going to stop happening, but the more we can handle that stuff, the better everything gets.
So how do we do that?
Oh man, you're actually going to ask me for like how to do this? Oh, I just wanted to like come on here and a little smart. So everything I do from a parenting space comes to the idea that we should be curious, not furious. I don't always do that well myself, but it's a thing I try to organize my life around, because it's easy to should our kids. My kid should be able to do this. My kid should not have snuck out last night. My kid should know better. Well, they could know better. They could have passed the test. They could not have snuck out. All those things are possibilities. But when we move from could to should, we're taking all the possibilities of could and adding shame to it. Shame is something that deteriorates relationships between parents and kids and teachers, partners. It really is sort of it's a downward spiral. So if you can move from should back to could, you become curious. You say like, okay, well, this is not the outcome I expected. It's not even the outcome I like. But if I can be curious about why this thing happened, then maybe I am more able to solve the problem or at least learn from it. And, I remember watching an episode of Ted Lasso, season 2. Nate he's finally come unglued and he's just screaming at Ted. And Ted is sitting there and he's like, all right, Nate, what do I need to learn from this? What's the lesson? And I remember thinking to myself, that is the platonic ideal of be curious, not furious. Like as a man too, I'm like, oh, some guy's up in my face like that. Like we're hardwired to get angry. We meet anger with anger. But Ted didn't meet ferocity with ferocity. He met the ferocity with curiosity. And it kept the situation from escalating. And I just think to myself, like, wow, what a gift that is to be able to watch that happen. And I mean, for every time I fail at it as a parent, and I certainly do, being aware of what I'm trying to do makes me better able to appreciate the times I do get it right.
I wonder if we have this expectation that we're supposed to know everything. So being in that learning mindset, that curious place. I love that example. Anything Ted Lasso, I'm like,
Yeah, right.
yes, love it so much. But being in that place of like, oh, I'm not supposed to know because I haven't learned this is antithetical to what we're fed with parenting is like we're supposed to know intuitively
Yeah.
how to do this without any training at all.
I think it's a symptom of the way we've organized parenting in the modern era, where it's a thing to master, right? It's like going on vacation with the right suitcase and the right sunglasses and the right e-reader and the right hotel. And it's like parenting is not a vacation, it's a road trip, right? I mean, there are going to be bumps along the way. There's going to be traffic. You might burst a tire somewhere. But the more we push this narrative of you have to have all of these things figured out, sorted out, learned, mastered before your child arrives, then it creates a downward anxious spiral of, if I don't know it, then there must be something wrong with me.
Yeah.
I haven't done the thing. I haven't prepared for the challenge. I watched that one extra episode of Emily in Paris that one time when I could have been attending a webinar on appropriate feeding strategies. And it's like, just stop, right? I have a complicated relationship with mindfulness. I think like a lot of ADHDers do. But the one thing that consistently works for me is this idea, just stop, right? You cannot solve a problem running 1,000 miles an hour, and it will only stress you out more to try and solve the problem at 1,000 miles an hour. So sometimes it's like, I need to stop. I need to take 10 seconds to recenter myself and then do the thing that's in front of me. Like very Frozen 2. I have young children. And when Anna's like, do the next right thing, I'm like, that's what I'm going to do right now. Look, I need to cook dinner. I need to put my kids in clothes and I need to do all these things. But right now, the thing I need to do is have a glass of water. And that is the next right thing for me. And there's something very zen about having a nice, tall, cold glass of water. And that is a beautiful thing, because if it makes me 1% more able to respond to my life's challenges, then it was a worthy investment.
Yeah, that's such a good example because I hear parents push back on the idea of self-care all the time. Yeah, fine for you, but I'm a single parent with 3 kids. They're all neurodivergent. They all go to different schools. I don't have time. But taking, 30 seconds to drink a glass of water is self-care.
Yeah.
And by calling it self-care, we're calling it mindfulness. It's shifting our mindset. I'm going to be in the present moment. I'm going to pick up my glass. I'm going to feel the temperature of that glass. I'm going to take a breath, and then I'm going to take a sip and notice how it feels going down.
Yep.
How long did that take?
Hmm.
When you were talking about the road trip, I was thinking about how I often frame my parenting as a quest. Like, I didn't know all of the twists and turns and what was going to happen around the next bend. But as I completed like the first challenge and picked up the cloak or whatever it was, the magic ring, special rock or whatever, as I got
love a
that,
special rock.
whatever it was, that helps me through the next challenge and the next challenge. So like a series of quests that then I grew stronger as a parent with each one and gained more skills, more strategies, more special rocks. Um,
Like I
and
said, I'm here for some special rocks. My for special rocks all the time. We are a special rock friendly household.
they're all special.
Well, and that's the fun part is that you realize they're all special rocks, right? It brings me just such joy to have these conversations, right? And just say like, yep, this is what it is. This is what we're doing. And let's go back to our original conversation. Yeah, listening to this and be like, I too have special rocks, but I really thought I was kind of the kid who collected football cards.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, man, we did too. Working predominantly with gifted kids and other twice exceptional and neurodivergent kiddos. I always come to the quote from the book Ada to a Scientist. When I do my talk on parenting neurodivergent kiddos, I always end with this quote. And it's funny because sometimes that's when people finally let it go. They finally start to cry. Right. And it's just like, oh, okay, yeah, good. That we found the catharsis. So at the end of the book, right, Ada has like covered the whole house with drawings and doodles and calculations, and they get mad at her, but then they sit and they think and they look at it and they decide to join her on her quest. And the book says, and that's what they did because that's what you do. When your kid has a passion and a heart that is true, they remade their world. Now they're all in the act of helping young Ada sort fiction from fact. She asks lots of questions. How could she resist? It's all in the heart of a young scientist. I mean, isn't that it's just so beautiful. They're all in the act. They remade their world. Like, yes, we are asking a lot of these things, right? And my favorite metaphor for talking about gifted kids as a question of equity, right? There's still this idea out there that gifted kids, it's an elitism thing. We want all of our kids to go to Columbia, right? And really, gifted education is special education. So I get like very fired up about this because one of my best friends from college is 6'9". He's a huge human being. You do the thing where everybody in college gets married, like within a couple of years. I'm 6 foot. I'm a slightly above average tall adult human male, right? You rent your suit from Men's Warehouse. Not our friend. He has to get a special suit because he's 6'9". Men's Warehouse does not sell suits for guys who are 6'9". And nobody says, well, this guy is like better than other people. He's just taller than other people. In fact, he's in like 99th percentile of height for American men. And there are things he's better at because he's so tall. Ironically, not basketball. Terrible basketball player. But we met playing ultimate frisbee. And I'll tell you this, whenever I was in trouble, I would just throw it as high as I could because he's 6'9". I mean, he's going to get it before anybody else can. And there are things he can't do as well because he's 6'9". He's like, I don't wear any shoes with laces. Do you know how hard it is to tie shoes when you're 6'9"? He's like, it's like a mile journey down to my feet. I feel like Frodo. He had to find a building that had very tall doorways. Thankfully, some of those buildings still exist. And because when you're 6'9", I mean, you like think about the doorways in your home. Most of them are made for someone who's probably, comfortably can pass through it if they were like 6 foot, right? Maybe they'd have to duck if they were 6'6", but he's 6'9". I mean, he's like, when I'm looking at homes, I have to think about the clearance space. And, you have to get a special bed. He gets a car. He's like, how far can I put the seat back? Right. His partner and his boss, they've remade their world to support my buddy getting the things he needs to be successful because A, he deserves those things. And B, when he gets those things, he does remarkable work. He's a great husband. He's a great dad. He's a great worker. And I think about that a lot when I serve the kids I do because it's just a question of how much can we remake this world to give this person the things they need to be successful. And then, and this is the important part, get the heck out of their way.
Wow, that's a great metaphor. And I was going to ask you about that. Like, is it elitism? Is it like a way in for certain parents to be more accepting of their child's neurodiversity by saying that they're gifted or twice exceptional? I was curious what your definition of giftedness is?
So giftedness is a thing that exists in multiple definitions. We'll start with the sort of commonly accepted that it's an IQ of 130 or higher. So that's 2 standard deviations above the mean, the 98th percentile of intelligence. So that's, it's a good number. What we've realized over time is that giftedness is a neurodivergence. It literally is a different brain. So that's why it has a seat at the table when we have conversations about neurodiversity, because it is a brain that is different. As I often say to parents, like, it's not just about being smart. It's about emotional intensity and social asynchrony and struggling with a lot of maladaptive perfectionism and a lot of other things that other people don't have to that extent. So giftedness can exist in just one area. You could be an average student, everything else, but there's something about coding that makes your brain come alive. And so you are a gifted person whose gifts manifest in the area of coding, right? But you bring that brain with you wherever you go. One of the things we see a lot in kids, and I have to constantly talk to school districts about this, you have a kid with a 140 IQ whose processing speed is in the 75th percentile. So a 140 IQ is in the 99.3rd percentile. Processing speed 75th percentile. Now that does not meet any definition of a processing speed disorder, except that everything exists in comparison and context, right? And also I'll say to teachers, like, so imagine that kid had 100 IQ, and let's subtract that many points from the processing speed down that way. So if a kid had 100 IQ and their processing speed was 75, would that kid meet criteria for a processing speed disorder? They're like, absolutely, we'd give them extra time. I'm like, right. So this kid's higher highs make the experience of that thing feel like a disability, even though it doesn't meet our context of disability. So we're reframing the conversations we have and the accommodations we put in through the lens of what this particular person needs.
Thanks. I'd never heard this phrase maladaptive perfectionism. I've come to the belief from my own experience and from working with others that all perfectionism is kind of maladaptive. But I actually really like that phrasing.
It's a nice thing to be able to say to people because it gets us out of this idea that all perfectionism is bad. Like, having high standards is a good thing. Wanting to get A's on a test is a good thing. The trick is, if you don't get an A, can you learn from that experience, or do you spend the rest of the year beating yourself up for it?
Like Ted Lasso.
Ted Lasso, right?
Or Nate. Who's going to be in my head, Nate or Ted Lasso?
I mean, that honestly, that is as the angel and devil, like in the old cartoon, right? Like, who are you going to listen to? What I tell my kids all the time is, like Miss Frizzle says, if at first you don't succeed, find out why. And I mean, like, listen, if there's a patron saint of gifted kids, it's Miss Frizzle. But that to me is the idea. It's like the mistake itself isn't the problem. It's what we do with it, and there's something very authentic and grounded about that approach to it. And I think it's something that actually dovetails nicely with a mindfulness mindset, because we're not fighting the experience we had because we didn't want it. We're saying, okay, this is the thing that happened. Let me sit with this and see how it feels. Let me see what lessons are inside this experience. Maybe the lessons are 0, or maybe it's something profound. We won't know until we sit with it.
Do you really think that people believe that all perfectionism is bad, or is there still this mindset that like perfectionism is like when people ask on a job interview, well, what are your faults or what are your challenges? Oh, I'm a perfectionist. Like, that our culture really celebrates perfectionism.
Yeah. Well, I think that as we enter late stage capitalism, and it's a whole ride, right? if you are not born into generational wealth, the thing you have to sell is your time, talent, and treasure. Those are the three things you have to barter with. And we're in a society that pushes perfectionism because if you have time, talent, and treasure, perfectionism is the most actualized version of time and talent, right? If you're a good basketball player, then you owe it to us to be the best basketball player you can possibly be. If that's Michael Jordan, it's Michael Jordan. If it's Reggie Miller, it's Reggie Miller. If it's, Dolph Shays, that's a deep cut of basketball players, then that's the best you can be. But I open my talk on perfectionism by asking the audience, what do gifted kids owe us?
Mm.
And more often than not, people say nothing. They don't actually owe us anything, which I think is true. If we set ourselves up as the arbiters or the gatekeepers of how people should use their time and talent, then we're creating a system where they get graded on a scale they never signed up for.
Mm.
One of the smartest people I have ever met in my entire life. She worked in Boston for many years. She was a high-level political theorist, right? She has been on many national publications. She got burned out. She moved to Austin, Texas. She liked it there. People were starting to get her back into the political machine, and she opened an animal rescue, and that's what she does now. And there are people in her life who are like, you won these major awards. You were a Mensa kid. Like, how is it possible you run an animal rescue? And she's like, I've never been happier. Right? She doesn't owe me a talking head spot on CNN. She doesn't owe me a 400-page tome about, relationships in the Arabian Peninsula. It would be cool if she did those things because there's value to those things. But there's also value in saving animals in Austin, Texas. Right?
Hallelujah. I went from an executive position to teaching yoga. So, I get it. Can we talk a little more specifically about your book? Because I'd really love to hear what you're offering in this book.
Absolutely. So to me, there are three kinds of books out there. And I'll broadly use the word self-help. They're the books that are all theory, no practice, right? Like, here's all the things you should do. We're not going to tell you how to do them, though. Hate those books, right? Then on the other side of that, it's all practice. It's super dense. It's no context. It's just do these things. We're telling you to do these things. It's like gym class in high school. Run. Am I running? It's good for you. Why is it good for me? I just said run. You should run. And then run the mile.
Because I told you to.
Yeah. So I'm aiming for the third category here, which is the mix of theory and practice, right? I want you to understand why the things I'm suggesting are good ideas. I want you to understand where that comes from, and I'm going to show you how to do it. I ground all of my work in neuroscience because, to me, the more we understand our brains and the more we understand neurodivergence as a universal experience, the more we position ourselves to come to these interventions from a place of, this isn't my fault because I failed. This is the brain I have with me, right? You know those color blindness tests, the circles with the circles? So I'm super colorblind. I'll pop those up on the screen. I'm like, what numbers are in here? And people are like 7, 14, 19. I'm like, nope, you're all lying to me. I see no numbers up there, right? And a couple times then they get the gag, right? And that's the thing. It's like, I didn't choose to be colorblind. I have to accommodate that thing. But it's just a brain difference. My rods and cones don't send information to my occipital lobe correctly. It is just what that is, right? When we understand the machinations of the neurodivergent brain, and why our kids are more emotionally intense, why our kids struggle with social interactions from a neuroscience perspective, then it gives us something to push back on that default narrative of, this is somehow my fault. The superhero, The Flash. So every superhero has their iconic villain, right? Batman has the Joker. Superman has Lex Luthor, right? I always ask people, who's the Flash's iconic villain? Right? And people sort of stare at me like,
My son would be able to tell you. He loves the Flash. But
I love the Flash too. The Flash's iconic villains are all speedsters like him, like Zoom, Eobard Thawne, the Reverse Flash, Avatar, the evil god of speed, because it's not just the Flash's body that moves that fast, but his brain moves that fast too. So your sort of standard like street level mugger that Batman or Spider-Man might have to fight, that's not a challenge for the Flash. He's already solved the problem 20 seconds ago. Like, and he's running away at super speed. So like for a lot of the kids I work with, it's not that they can't get along with neurotypical kids, but we see the best version of themselves when they are with kids who can run just as fast as they can. I have a kid who in his regular school, he plays chess 1-on-4. He will play 4 different games of chess at the same time. And then in summer camp with other kids, he plays 1-on-1 chess. And for him, that is like the bee's knees. Like the fact that there are kids who can swim in his end of the pool is a valuable thing. And there just aren't that many kids who are that kind of gifted, right? Now we know 1 out of 5 people are neurodivergent. So there's a lot of neurodivergent humans. But giftedness, especially that sort of profound giftedness, is a very small subset of that population. So, ultimately, we want everybody to find out like that they're a zebra, not a weird horse. And my book is built to help you ask that question, like, what kind of zebra am I? And then go through the parts of your life internally, externally, in the community that are going to help you live a life that's more authentic, more satisfying, and more successful than you're doing right now.
Love that. Would you say that your book is geared mainly toward giftedness or neurodiversity more in general?
There are enough universal experiences within the neurodivergent community that I think that it's really for everybody. I tried to write it that way. I see a lot of people who are ADHD, a lot of people who are autistic, a lot of people who are gifted, a lot of people who are dyslexic, and a lot of people who are some amalgamation of all those things, right? So I would do some tweaks for an intervention for someone who's dyslexic, say who's someone who's autistic. But the idea is that they both have different brains, and those different brains have more in common with each other than they do with the neurotypical brain, right? So I can translate those. It's like romance languages, right? Like I can't speak Italian, but I can speak French. So if I listen to an Italian person, I get enough of it that I'm like, okay, I kind of get what you're doing here, right? But if I can speak French and I talk to someone from the Ukraine, I'm like, your letters are different than my letters.
Yeah, that's a good one. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So, as we're bringing this back full circle, you were starting to tell me about an experience that you had helping a dad connect with his son. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. This is it's one of my favorite stories. This dad, when he was in high school, he was a very big deal football player. When he was in college, he was a very big deal football player. He was on the covers of magazines, right? Like that level of famous. Obviously, I can't tell you who he is, though. Every time I say this, I can hear his voice in my head. He's like, dude, just tell them. It's a great story. I'm like, you're not the only person in this story. He's 6'5", 260 pounds. He's a huge human being. His kiddo got mom's genetics. So he's 5'7", 118 pounds. Tiny little kid, right? His dad's like, he should play football. I played football. And I'm like, yeah, your kid's probably not gonna, he's like, he could be the kicker. So I was like, listen, the way you are going to reach your kid is not through putting your kid into your life, is to putting yourself into your kid's life. And your kid wants to do live action role playing. He's a LARPer. And dad's like, well, that seems dumb. I'm like, well, sure, that's easy to say, but have you ever actually gone to a LARP? And he's, no, I haven't. So I was like, listen, your kid's got a LARP this Saturday. Do me a favor, go for a half hour, right? Go from 9 to 9:30, stop at Starbucks, get yourself a coffee, right? And if it sucks, leave. But like, just give it a half hour. He grumbled and he said he'd do it. So on Saturday, I'm looking at my phone, 9 comes and goes, 9:30 comes and goes, 10 o'clock comes and goes. I'm like, oh boy, did he not go? At noon, I get a text and it's him and his son. His son is dressed up as an archer, but dad is now dressed up as an orc. And he's got the horns and he's got a club. He got super into it. He's like, I was there for 20 minutes and I was like, oh my God, this is a football game. It's just in costume with foam swords. And I'm like, yes, like that's the vibe. Right? And it's such a great story. And it really brought them closer. Now, dad doesn't always play in LARP and he doesn't go to every LARP event. And I'm sure in his heart of hearts, dad would prefer his son be all-state football star. But he was willing to understand that his kid is a very different kind of neurodivergence, right? Than his wife, who's that sort of like ADHD, really bright. She's a very physical person, but she's also brilliant. So he got a kid, he's not super wired to understand, but he's put in the sweat equity, he's put in the work, and they're closer now than they ever have been.
They have a shared language.
They have a shared language.
Like, even if he doesn't do all the LARPing, he now understands what his son is talking about.
Right. You cued me up perfectly for this. It's like the whole idea behind my book is the idea of code switching, right? Having a shared language, because when you're neurodivergent, it can feel like everybody else went to some meeting where they learned how to be people. They had a people meeting, how to people, and they did not invite you. And you have to deal with that. You have to unpack that. And the idea here is that, like, I don't want you to sell yourself out and be somebody you're not. I want you to have the ability to code switch. Like, and having that shared language is a kind of code switching. I might not be interested in the local sport team game, right? You're in Brooklyn. Like, do you watch the Nets?
Not lately, no.
Right. But I bet if you were at the local coffee shop or the farmer's market and somebody's like, oh, did you see the Nets game? You would at least understand the language that means. Like, we're talking about a local community thing, right? You're like, oh my gosh, I don't really watch it, but tell me what happened. I have a whole section of the book about small talk. It's like, that's all small talk has to be. I don't have to care, but I have to understand that you care and that small talk can serve as a way to bridge this thing. It's about making micro relationships in micro moments. I got my paternal grandfather's gift for small talk. He was the king of small talk. And like a lot of neurodivergent people really struggle with that. I happen to be great at it. So like, I will very intentionally model what that looks like to people. I'm like, you like this thing, you like this thing. Now we're all talking together. You guys could keep talking about this thing. And I'm out. And I smoke bomb. It's, if we treat these concepts as monoliths, we'll never climb that mountain because it feels too big, too scary, too much. But if we allow ourselves to see them as a collection of discrete skills we can try to learn, then it never becomes easy, but it does get easier. And I think that's a worthy goal.
That's great. All right, I have a couple of questions that I ask every guest. What do you most want to be remembered for?
I mean, I want to be remembered as somebody who helped kids. And that is really important to me. It is not easy to be a kid. It's probably harder now than it's ever been ever. It's the hardest since the Black Death. How about that?
Thank you. And what are your core values, especially related to parenting?
So first one's curiosity. Second one is compassion. I screw up all the time, but if I can be compassionate to myself and my partner when we mess up, it doesn't linger because, as Seneca said, don't trip over something behind you. Curiosity, compassion, and the last C is communication. Like, I cannot win a game I don't know that I'm playing. So I need to know the rules of the game. So having those conversations, using a lot of what we call meta communication, talking about talking, like, what are the things that are going on in your brain that I need to know to be the best parent and partner I need right now? Because if you're sitting there stressed out because you really want to get to this neighborhood event tonight that I don't know exists, then we're operating on two different wavelengths, and it's going to create friction, right?
Yeah.
My daughter's got a loose tooth right now, and like, she didn't want us to pack lunch today. I don't want lunch. I don't want lunch. Until we realized, oh my gosh, she's worried about a loose tooth. I was like, well, what if we gave you a yogurt, sweetie? She's like, oh, yogurt's great. Solve the problem. But we had to get that context and communicate to solve the problem.
That makes so much sense. And finally, what parenting memory brings you joy?
That's a good one. I mean, I am blessed that there's a lot of those for me. I am able to take a lot of joy from parenting. But I would say that my town does this fair every year. It's the Fireman's Fair. And, I went every year as a kid, and now I'm old enough to bring my children. And this year was the third year I took my kids, and I hadn't said anything to them about it. And at one point they looked at me like, Daddy, are we going to the fair? We always go to the fair. And it just like, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, this is not just a memory. It's a tradition. We've created a thing. We've officially handed it to the new generation. And it's just a blessing. Like, it's just a thing that I am humbled to be able to share with people I care about. And I mean, like, I just don't know if there's anything better than that.
Love that. Yeah. Can I ask you about the one about the socks?
Oh my gosh. So one of the things that comes with being neurodivergent is having sensory needs, right?
You know about that.
Oh yeah, right. Like, frontal lobe, overconnections, a lot of sensory needs. My son, he has more sensory needs than I do, than my wife does. So it can be a challenge in the morning to deal with that, especially when you're trying to get him out the door to get on the bus to get to school.
Heck yeah.
And I had to take my own advice, and I will give my wife all the credit here because this was her idea. She's like, instead of trying to make these socks that are clearly not working work for him, what if we got different socks? Sensory friendly socks. Google sensory friendly socks. There's a lot of them out there. And the look on his face when he slid that sock on for the first time was like, oh, I am authentically parenting this kid in this moment. We got him special socks. He loves wearing. It's not a fight anymore. He's happier. We're happier. Everybody wins, right?
Sometimes it really is just about switching out that article of clothing. I have a blog post about my son's coat that's very similar. So where can parents find you, Dr. Matt?
Our therapy practice is the Neurodiversity Collective. We are all virtual, so we can see you from basically any state in the country, which is very fun.
Great.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And then I do a lot of speaking and consulting and presentations, and that's drmattzakreski.com. So I always say to people, like, if you want me for your kid, it's the neurodiversitycollective.com. If you want me for your company, it's drmattzakreski.com.
That makes so much sense. Thank you. And did you say you were going to give away a book to our listeners?
I did. I've got it right here. The physical book. Tell me who wins. I will sign it for them and I will send it to them in the mail.
I love it. Thank you so much. It was really nice meeting you. Thank you so much, Dr. Matt.
It was a real pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining Atypical Kids Mindful Parents. I really appreciate you walking alongside me